Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to discuss 2023, kind of just our favorites of the year, how the year went for us, general chit chat. Here's some friends, and Chibipoe, you start us off with an introduction.
Okay, just Chibipoe, a lurker and participant on page chewing, and pokes around on Twitter and Goodreads.
And glad you can make it. And Paromita.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paromita. I read in a variety of genres, and I'm a member of the Page Chewing Forum, and I'm excited to talk about my favorites of 2023.
I have a question for you, how you pick your favorites, but we'll get to that in a second, because you have a lot to choose from. And Jarrod.
Hi, I'm Jarrod. I'm run a Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I also participate in the Page Chewing forums, and I do have a blog that I haven't done anything for a while, but hoping to fix that soon.
Awesome. The holidays are such a weird time, right? Because everything kind of gets, everything's like upside down, but Happy New Year, everyone. It's 2024. We made it. Yeah. How was everyone's year in a nutshell?
Well, as far as reading goes, it was pretty good. Lots of cool stuff that I read. So I'm sure you guys could probably say the same based upon what I've seen, what you guys have read. So
yeah, quite a bit. And it's your first year of BookTube too, right, Jarrod? First full year.
It is. Yep, first full year, and so it's been a real trip. I can honestly say this is probably the most I've ever read in 1 year. I wasn't a voracious reader. I read a lot of cool stuff, but not quantity. So starting a BookTube channel and also being involved with other people who are reading a lot, inspired and motivated me to read a lot more.
Has BookTube, because you mentioned you curate your list pretty carefully, what you decide to read. How has BookTube and content creation changed that process for you, if at all?
What it did was it broadened my horizons as far as what I knew was available, because I never really followed any. I'm not a big social media person, and I wasn't ever signed up for any kind of, like list or whatever that stuff coming out, what have you. I would occasionally just go to the bookstore and just pick something, and if it was something I liked, I would continue with that author, whereas BookTube, getting involved in BookTube, exposed me to a whole bunch of other authors and a whole bunch of other notifications of what was available, basically. So that was that, and it also exposed me to getting to know certain booktubers, because I liked what they were saying, and so I was starting to trust their opinion when I knew they liked certain things that I do like. So so when they had something else that was newer or something like that, then I could say, all right, yeah, I can see why they like that, and that's might be something that I like. And I've also gotten a lot more exposure to authors as well, which made me, if I like a certain author's writing, then I would watch an interview with them, and that would make me more interested in their works and stuff like that. So it all fed into each other,
What about you, Paromita? How's your year in general been?
In terms of reading, similar to Jarrod, I think I have read more this year than I ever have. And I think that was both good, but also I've decided to take a little bit of a step back and enjoy more. So just recalibrating a bit for 2024. Read lots of new things, which I wouldn't have tried. Realized what I like and perhaps don't like so much a bit more, and tried some new formats as well. For example, I got into reading more poetry, which I still say this, that I'm absolutely hopeless when it comes to deciphering poetry. But it turns out that there are some poets whose works do speak to me more. So that was something I got into. And the other thing was graphic novels or manga. And in fact, it's one of my all-time favorite series was a manga series, and I read it very late in the year, in December. So we've been trying lots of new things, lots of rereads. Some stuff held up, some stuff didn't so much, but mostly it's been a very, very, very good year, and it helped me to set some broad goals in terms of what I want to do with my reading for 2024.
And so Berserk is on your favorites list?
Yes, that's true.
Wow. Didn't see that coming. That's cool. What about you, Chibipoe? How's your year in a nutshell?
It wasn't bad. I don't know. I think I'm going to try to read more this year, but this year than I did last. I think trying to set a definite goal meant I read less because I felt like I was pursuing this goal, and then I'm just like, so I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably put a number in, and then I'll just like start reading by grabbing things off my shelf instead of trying to, meet some arbitrary goal. So
yeah, I try not to set a goal for the year.
But I enjoyed what I read. But yeah, I'm just kind of like, man, I felt like I could have read more, but didn't. So
yeah, it's those goals can sneak up on you, right? Kind of affect you in ways you don't expect sometimes.
Yeah, like I there's one point where I had the goal and I didn't even set it particularly high, but it's like I, breezed over to Goodreads and I saw what it said and I was like, oh, okay. And then at some point I was behind, like 2 or 3 books behind, and then I started grabbing books trying to force myself to read them to, catch up to the, or get ahead of it. And yeah, I think that detracted from my enjoyment. So.
Yeah, those sneaky goals. So who wants to go first with their favorites of the year? Not all at once.
Well, hold on, Steve. What about your reading year in a nutshell?
Oh, good question. I forgot to mention my own.
Obviously, he was trying to sneak under the radar.
I was trying to sneak on by. This year, I think it's. I think I've slowed down a little bit reading, taking my time more with what I'm reading, and I think it's more of a rewarding experience for me when I just slow down and take my time and not worry so much about, because it's hard to not be excited about stuff we want to read. It's hard to not be excited and want to get to it. We want to get to the next thing, but we also, I also would kind of forget what I'm reading now. And then the book that I was excited to read a few months ago, I'm rushing through it now to get to the next thing that I'm excited to read. So I tried to stop doing that so much and just take my time, really kind of breathe it in. And I felt that it's more of a rewarding experience for me when I would just slow down. As exciting as it is to start a new series or to read something else, just enjoy what you're currently reading first, and then we have plenty of time, hopefully plenty of time to get to it. But so this year I'm going to try any series. My goal for this year is any series that I don't already own book one. I won't start a new series because I have too many book ones that I own on my shelf. So no more book ones for 2024. I'm just going to read what I have on hand or what I've already started, and I'm not going to start a new series. So I was racing at the end of the year to buy a few more so I can have them in the bullpen. But yeah, I'm no new series for me. That's my goal for the year.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. You have a. So do you have a lot of stuff on your shelf unread?
I think I have. There's a few that I have. There's about 4 or 5 that I can think of that I have unread that I'm wanting to get to, like the Bone Ships by and I have a few others that I've been wanting to get to. I just haven't. Or like Children of Time is another one I get to this year. So I'm hoping to get to those, but I was sure to get those, have them on hand before the year started. So so I was kind of cheating, but kind of not. So that's my goal for the year.
All right, then my goal for the year is to dig up all these really good series that aren't recent, and just inundate you with number ones in the series, and be like, here, now you have a gigantic pile.
I have no doubts. Yeah, it's gonna be tough because it's hard, to not be excited about things. But if I just read what I have, I think I'll be plenty busy all year. So it's tough though. There's so many good ones out there.
There is a lot of good stuff out there. That's one thing that I noticed, especially joining BookTube, was there's a lot of good stuff out there that I never heard of, or that I just didn't realize was as good as it as glancing on a shelf would give any idea of. So that was pretty good. It's been revelatory, really, doing this whole BookTube thing over the past year, and just seeing how things go. Because I didn't start with any kind of big plan. I just started recording videos and throwing them up there, and so I was, basically still mood reading when I started, reading what I wanted, and when I saw people having these big to be read lists, and I was like, oh, I'll try to do that, and I started making lists and stuff like that, and then I was like, that seems that wasn't for me. I still wanted to read what I wanted to read, because as soon as I read Curse of the Mist Wraith, that was one, back in March or whatever it was, I was like, well, I know I want to continue on with that, so why am I going to make a list of a whole bunch of other stuff I want to read when I want to continue on with that? And it's kind of similar in that vein, so I have so I've been forcing myself not to have that kind of a must-read list, and just read what I want as it comes along, and occasionally I read along with other stuff, knowing that I only read three, maybe 4 books a month if I'm lucky, and knowing that I'm only going to join something that's going to fit into that regimen, rather than stressing myself out.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of reading faster, Paromita, what for people who read slower like me, who want to read a little bit faster? Not that I don't want to fly through books, but just as in terms of efficiency, what advice would you have for someone like me who wants to read a little bit faster? Not fast, but just, do you have any tips for those of us like that?
Not as I guess it depends a bit on the book. There are some books where the way the author writes, it just flows. So for those, I would say, I mean, you will just know when you click with the author's writing style that you move through the pages automatically. And then for the ones which take a bit more effort, you know, where you have to work a bit to revisit the lines or something like that. So I guess the only thing I can think of is maybe alternate those two. If you know that an author's writing style clicks for you, then make sure you have, let's say you're reading 3 books at the same time, then you have 2 which are fast going, or fast going means you click with the style enough that there's momentum in when you read, and so that the one which takes more time, you have that leisure of taking your time with it. Other than that, I don't really think. I mean, one thing I would say is that if you know that an author, like, descriptions are redundant, I skim them, and they are pretty common in a lot of epic fantasy and epic science fiction. So after some point when I see description, unless the descriptions are beautifully written, but if they are not beautifully written and, you know, they're just like, hello, this is happening, or another one which is the author is like, I will world build now, and I'm like, yes, fine, that's totally fine, that's the author's prerogative, but I would like to move on. So then I sort of go through those sections faster. But mainly I think the best thing, like, especially even if you're not reading multiple books at one time, if you're doing one book at a time, most of the people I have seen, to avoid that sort of getting bogged down feeling, is they switch between genres, or even if they don't switch between genres, they put in a faster paced read, or just in terms of length, psychologically, a shorter read with a longer novel, so that it balances itself out. And especially, I think, with epic fantasy and science fiction, the assumption seems to be things like 800 pages is pretty normal. So if you alternate it with something like literary fiction, where there are some chonky literary fiction books, but usually on the prize list, if they put 2 books which are longer than 600 pages, the people who are doing the reviews will complain. They're like, whereas epic fantasy, it's like, 600 pages, totally doable. Let's fit 2 of those in. Yeah. So actually, I think, like, people who read fantasy, it's very well poised to read the long literary fiction works.
Sure.
But yeah, you can fit in shorter or mysteries. Science fiction also, actually, especially the earlier science fiction works, they used to have a lot of ideas packed in very short time. I think sword and sorcery novels are also probably on the shorter. Ursula K. Le Guin is another. Yeah, so maybe fitting in those instead of somebody I know who might be doing Second Apocalypse, Wars of Light and Shadow, and Malazan at the same time.
Who would do such a thing? Yeah, we haven't started Malazan yet, so yeah, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, that's why I haven't started Second Apocalypse, because I'm doing Wars of Light and Shadow, and I'm still rereading Malazan. So I was like, I don't know if I can do another series like that at the same time. But
it's a lot.
Some of the ones I have listed for wanting to start up, I'm like, I'm glad these are only like 4 books. You know, admittedly they're large books, but you know, because I've got a whole bunch. I want to reread Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and then follow through Last King of Ostenard, since he's going to finish it this year, or the last book comes out in November, and then I've got like. He's got like 2 or 3 other series that I want to start too, but you know, he's always fond of, you know, here's 4 books and then he's done. and he moves on to something else. So I'm like, okay, that works. So I got a bunch of Tad Williams I don't want to get to, and I want to finish the Deva Bad, and I don't know, maybe I'll finally try the Abercrombie on my shelf if I don't decide that I'm like, I don't want these, they can go away. We'll see.
What's kept you from reading Abercrombie so far? Is it just timing, or just haven't felt like it?
Yeah, it's really just it. It's like, I think it might have ended up, I'd heard people talk about it good, and I was like, and then it was one of those, cases I was like, oh, hey, I like the covers of these. I'm going to grab them. And then they sat on my shelf.
It happens.
Well, they kind of came at the point where, I ended up, during, stuck inside with COVID, I ended up buying a lot of books. It's like I felt replaced some stuff that I didn't have, and then just, started looking at new authors, and I was like, okay, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And it was especially handy because the local bookstore during COVID, she stayed open, but she was basically, either mailing or she would, just drive up and, drop them off, while masked up, so do deliveries. I was like, awesome. And I, I don't know about anyone else, but, for their customers, but I was, buying books left and right because I didn't have anything else to do. And then I had a whole bunch and I didn't read any of them.
Yeah. One of the things that I will not be doing this year that I did against my better judgment last year are readathons. I'm done with readathons. It's just not fun. The whole idea is to read as fast as you can, as many books as you can, and I don't know why I agreed to do them.
Oh,
I'm done with readathons. They're not fun for me. I know some people like it, but
what was it, like a contest?
Yeah, it was it the not the Indie Accords? I forget. It was one of the. I don't even use Discord, and it was one of the Discords, and I was asked to participate, and so I was able to read enough. I think the team won. I didn't even keep up with it. I don't use Discord, but yeah, it was. It wasn't fun. It just added an extra layer of. It felt more like a job than for pleasure. So, and
yeah, like I like read-alongs with other people, but I was always kind of baffled at readathons. We're like, let's read as many things as you can. I'm like, but that's just gonna negatively impact all of them because you're just trying to rush through them to get to the next thing. And I'm like, no, don't want to do that.
Yeah, I get the idea behind it, like, to read more, but when it's a competition, then, it's more about how much you can read and not really, who knows? I don't know, but not my thing. So.
Yeah. How would they know that you didn't just speed read it and just...
Yeah, they don't. It's all the honor system.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So some people read like 40 books or 50 books in the month or whatever, and it's like, I had like 4, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, so who knows? Not to imply anyone's lying, just, you never know. So, yeah.
Just curious, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those, I don't know. You never know who's really reading or not, but, so anyway, onto the good stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. Who has a list and who wants to go first? Tell us a little bit about their favorite reads. It can be a reread or a new read or...
Well, I did my top 5 of the year, and these were not rereads, not including rereads, but my favorite of last year was The Killing God by Stephen Donaldson. That was book 3 in the Great Gods War, because I finished up that series back in early February, and it stuck with me the whole year. It's my favorite read. He really stuck the landing and created a unique fantasy world in a trilogy, self-contained, and I just thought he had Donaldson has always had a penchant for psychological and philosophical discourse in his writing, but I thought he really focused it in a unique way in these books, and I really like how he does it, how he did it, and I really like how he finished it off. It was just a spectacular ending. And he did do something he normally does in his writing, is he gives you this super narrow focus in the first book, and then in the second book he expands that greatly from there, but which is really great, because the way he does it really surprises you when everything else is revealed. So I love how he does that stuff. So that really worked for me. That was my favorite of the year. And then right on the heels of that is Curse of the Mr. Eighth, and that series, the 4 books we read for the read along last year. I really loved War Host of Vastmark, because I love how she ended that one. Spectacular ending. So I'm an endings person.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured that out, I know some people like beginnings better, what have you, but I really like a great ending, and so those are really spectacular. Plus, Janie Wertz's writing as well, her prose is impeccable, and I also really loved The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence.
Oh.
That was a big surprise for me, because that was a new author to me this year too, and I hesitated wanting to read all any of his previous stuff, because it was like more like you were talking about series, getting into more series, and I was like, I don't want to get into another series at this point. But he came out with a brand new book, The Book That Wouldn't Burn, and I was like, okay, that seems like a good way to start with him, and it got some good recommendations. Philip Chase recommended it, and he talked about it on his channel, and I was like, okay, that sounds like it's up my alley. It's got a magical library, which was cool. It reminded me of something that Gaiman would come up with, maybe Neil Gaiman. But then I read it, and it's not like Gaiman at all. It's its own thing. But and I really enjoyed it. I thought he had a couple of characters in there that were just a joy to follow and a lot of fun to get to know, and he had a lot of neat ideas in there about what a magical library consists of, and so that was my number 3 book of the year. And then I read Stoner by John Williams, and that's contemporary literature, so out of my fantasy wheelhouse, so to speak, but really loved that book. It was a really nice change up from my normal reading, and I just thought that book pretty much laid out why we love literature.
Wow.
In a story about a professor of literature, so the character loved literature more than anything else, to his detriment. Unfortunately, it's not the happiest story, but it was really, really, really well done. And I also really loved Forge of the High Mage came out by Ian Esselmont, so that was the latest in the Malazan series. And I always loved those. So that's extremely a bunch of fun for me, just revisiting those characters, because it's like a prequel, it's a prequel series leading up to the main 10 books, and And then I loved Philip Chase's series. The last one I thought being the best.
Oh.
Their Return to Idan was the best one out of the three. Yeah, in my opinion. It once again, because I like a really good ending, and he had a really good ending. And he did something a little different with a third book than what most trilogies do. And I really appreciated that. I thought it was well done.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
So
that's my rundown.
Yeah, I have Stoner on my list too of books. That's on my shelf to get to it. But yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one. That was interesting, very interesting book. It's like the book where about a professor of literature. It doesn't sound exciting at all, but but it's written really well, and it's and it ends up being a lot more than you bargained for. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Paromita, you want to go next with your favorites of the year?
Yes, sure. So, I made a top 10 list and it is ranked. So I did not include rereads, and I rate everything that I read in my personal scoring system, which then I convert to Goodreads, the 5, but usually I rate it on 10. So everything on this list is 9 on 10 or above. And so the first 5 are pretty, I mean, number 1 is number 1 and number 5 is number 5. And the last 5 are a bit more fluid. So I'll go through them in order. My book of the year was a book called The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. It's a very, very strange novel. It's more like a collection of thoughts or musings, like the journal of this fictional character or characters. And it was, it spoke to my heart very, very deeply. And it's an all-time favorite. I don't have enough words to express how good it is or how much it meant to me.
Wow.
I bought a physical copy along with my ebook, and I just hope that I can reread excerpts from it regularly, even if I want to read maybe the whole book every year, like make it an annual thing, but at least I want to reread excerpts.
Is it fictional stuff?
It is, yeah, yes, it is fiction.
Okay, cool.
The second book that was again absolutely brilliant. So this would be Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman. It's actually part of a duology. Book 1 is Stalingrad and book 2 is Life and Fate. Life and Fate can be read as a standalone, and usually often is, but if you want the whole picture, then Stalingrad and Life and Fate should be read together. I just put one book by each author, that's why I have Life and Fate. Beautifully written, post-World War II setting, and the aftermath. What was going on in terms of ideological clashes reflected through characters and very, very powerful character vignettes. I've since read, apart from Stalingrad and Life and Fate, I've read 2 other books by Vasily Grossman, and all fantastic. So he's, again, definitely a new favorite author, and I want to read. I'm rereading Life and Fate right now. Like, it's my 2024 first reread I chose was this one. So wonderful, wonderful book. The third one was The Road by Cormac McCarthy. There's another book which I also loved, which I read this year, which is The Crossing, but I put only one book per author, and The Road was a 10 on 10 book for me. It was absolutely immaculate, it was flawless. It was a post-apocalyptic novel, very, very stark, very, very clinical prose. very, very heartfelt. I mean, there were usually I struggle with Cormac McCarthy. For example, I have not liked his novels like Blood Meridian or Child of God at all. But this one just it resonated with me immediately, and it was a wonderful read. The fourth one, very big surprise. Read end of the year, maybe with 3-4 days to go in the year. I started on Christmas. Is the manga series Berserk by Kentaro Miura. Storytelling is great. Character arcs are great, but what elevated this to just wow, I have no words, is the artwork. It's spectacular. It's jaw dropping. I don't know how someone achieves that panel by panel, volume by volume, and he did right up to the very end. So the series is not over, but Miura tragically passed away after completing volume 41. It is being continued by his studio assistants under the supervision of his dear friend, who is also a mangaka. He's also a manga artist. But Miura's art is I'm amazed that this exists. So that was a huge positive surprise for me, and it's definitely in my all-time favorite series. The fifth book is called The Dying Grass by William T. Woolman. New author for me. I've read one of his nonfiction books before called Rising Up and Rising Down. It was very good. It's out of print. It's completely out of print. And I managed to get a PDF. But anyway, I also tried a book called Europe Central, which is one of his better known books, and didn't quite vibe with it. But this is about the Nez Perce War, and it is a blend of fiction and non-fiction. What Woolman tries to do in this book is reconstruct the history from different documents, different source documents, both official documents, which is recorded by the so-called victors, and also the statements that have been passed on from generations from the people who sometimes do not have a voice, or sometimes their voices get suppressed. So very, very moving book, brilliantly alternating POVs between these two traditions, the official documents and then the oral tradition of recording history, which is reflected in the way the book is written. And it also has a very comprehensive bibliography at the end, if anyone is interested. And the way Woolman writes about how he went about compiling this bibliography, even that was interesting to read. Usually when I get to the end of a book and there's a bibliography, I just skip. But here, even that was very well written. So, very lovely book. Number 6 is a classic called The Nun by Denis Diderot. It's a French classic, I think early 1900s published. It's about a woman who wants to live life on her own terms, and she has her own interpretation of faith. It's called The Nun, so she is in a monastery, in an abbey sort of, and she is not in conformity with what the religious beliefs are of that time. This does not mean that her faith is untrue, but just that she believes what she believes and she wants to be let be. And the book is all about whether that was ever possible, whether we can let someone be, even when they are not causing us any harm, just because their beliefs are not in conformity with ours. And the reason why it hit me so hard is I felt this was very topical even today. Letting people be is not so easy or, frankly, frequent, even in today's day and age, when we have come so far in other ways. So that was why the book was very impactful. Number 7 was Clarissa by Samuel Richardson. Again, another huge surprise. This was somebody just suggested it to me. It's a 1500-page epistolary novel, which was published in the late 1700s. And it is absolutely brilliant. It is from a female POV, and it's about, mainly it is through Clarissa and her best friend, and they're writing letters to each other, and that's how the story evolves. So, firstly, epistolary format done this brilliantly, I have rarely seen. So I just loved it. And to maintain that for 1500 pages was amazing. And the other thing which really spoke to me in this novel, which is again from late 1700s, I wasn't expecting it. We don't see it in 19th century novels or even in 20th, even 21st century novels. It is rare, which is the theme of female friendship. And it was very, very lovely to read that. Number 8 is again historical fiction novel called Days Without End by Sebastian Barry. It was an award-winning book. I think it came out in 2016 or 2018. It is about a particular specific period of Irish history. And again, the writing was brilliant. Characters were brilliant and very, very hard-hitting, moving. It's a very short book. And it has a sequel, so it really it spoke to my heart when I read it, so that's why it's on the list. Number 9 is The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. I didn't expect to like this at all, because I remember when I tried this last year, I think I DNF'd it, and somehow this time the narrative voice just clicked for me. It's beautiful. It's about these two boys who try to get into the comic business and this is in America during the time when World War II is going on, and one of the boys is Jewish. He has escaped from a particular plight which his family has not been able to escape, and it's the interplay of all these historical elements together with the history of how comics evolved, all blended together in a fictional narrative. Absolutely beautiful. It won the Pulitzer Prize in 2000. But more importantly, anyone who likes comics or anyone who is interested in comics in any way, shape, or form will love this novel, I think. It's very, very simply written. Chabon doesn't show off. He doesn't have any sort of bombastic prose. It's just letting simplicity speak for itself, and very, very endearing characters, and all about how coming up with those scenes in comic books. So it was and I'm not a comic book person, and even then I found it so, so delightful. So I think anybody who likes comics or who has an interest in that history of comics, how they evolved from how they were to how they are now, it was a very, very endearing and intelligent conversation on that topic. Last one is a book called Poison for Breakfast by Lemony Snicket. It's a very sweet, heartfelt book about reading, about books. It's through the perspective of a fictional character, and there's a little bit of a mystery going on, but chiefly it's commentary on books, on reading, and I think very short read. Again, very simple, but very nice writing, and anyone who just needs a bit of a, a pick-me-up and who loves books will enjoy this story, I think. So those are my top 10.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm very interested in that Michael Chabon book. It sounds fascinating to me.
It's really, really good, Jarrod. This one and the other one is the Yiddish Policeman's Union. That's like noir genre, but with a little twist of an alternate history. The alternate history part is really clever. Like, I jaw-droppingly clever, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. You'll know as soon as you start it. But it's a very, very nice book. I think Cavalier and Clay is probably higher up there for me, but both these books are great. Really, really good.
So, given all the books you read this year, was it hard to narrow it down to 10?
Because I excluded rereads, and then the second criteria that I applied was 9 on 10. So there were lots of, so that means like excellent and or all-time favorite status. There were lots of books which I gave like 4 stars. So those were very good. And maybe some of them I would even read, but none of them are on that list. If I had included 4 stars, it would have been difficult. But no, because it was 5 stars, I counted I think I had 14 then last time I counted, which was I think early December, and then I had Berserk and one more 5-star read. So out of 16, I had to narrow it down to 10, which was, and then if I exclude the only one book per author, then it was not too bad.
Nice. Well, it's an impressive list. Now, I'm regretting that whole decision. I might go for the year to not start a new series now after hearing everyone's favorites. It's gonna be tough. It's only the 1st of January.
But the fun thing, wait, let me check. Other than Berserk, none of the things that I've said are on my list are series. Loophole.
Yeah. We'll see
none of them are series. I was very surprised, I must confess to everyone, when I made the list, because when I was reading throughout the year, of course, I personally don't log so much or think so much about statistics. I thought that I was reading equal genre fiction and classics literary fiction. But if you look at the list, barring Berserk and maybe Amazing Adventures, but Amazing Adventures is also literary fiction come, the comic book element. So barring Berserk, there's nothing of all the fantasy and all the science fiction I read, and even of the mysteries I read. Mysteries, I guess I didn't read so much. So I was just very surprised by that, because I always consider myself like a 50-50. Like I say, the top two genres are fantasy and literary fiction joined. So it was very surprising for me when I saw the favorites list. Berserk is representing everything.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. I'm glad Berserk's on your list. So, Chibipoe, what's on your list for the year?
I don't really do a whole list because I do end up a lot of times rereading stuff, and some of my rereads, I'm like, these are so good that they just kind of would blow everything else out. But I'd say for something I didn't reread this year, probably my favorite has been P.L. Stewart's. Drowned Kingdom stuff, working on that. I really like those.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
I can't remember if I read the first Dan book this year or not. Or did he put them all out?
They were all
year?
out this year, yeah.
Okay, then I did read that one. So yeah, that one would be there too, but I need to finish the other two. And I don't know, other stuff that I read that wasn't rereads, I was like, this is okay, but it wasn't anything great. Tchaikovsky's, started Shadows of the Apt. I really liked it. So that's on there, and Bone Ships, I really like those too. So those are probably the ones for stuff I hadn't read before. So
What about rereads? Which ones stuck out to you? Did you enjoy? Because sometimes you can reread something and enjoy it even more the second time.
Rereads, well, that's just that's just gonna be January. Those are the things I did the most rereads of. I don't think I did rereads of much else. Everything else this year that I read was stuff I hadn't read before.
Yes.
But yeah, for rereads, I pretty much enjoy those wholeheartedly every time I reread them. So I can't wait for us to start the next one. I see someone already started.
Jarrod.
Yeah.
He's always ahead. Yeah. He's always ahead.
Well, we're meeting in like 2 weeks.
2
right?
weeks.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Not too far.
I know I'm already way ahead, but I'm just like, I stopped and it's like, I will wait. And the Goodreads, or the one person who's still paying attention in the Goodreads, is, chomping at the bit she finished up Fugitive Prince and is chomping to start, Grand Conspiracy. And she's like, the rest of you can just catch up, if you want to participate. So I'm looking forward to
Nice.
that.
So, any ones that you're looking forward to this year that you haven't read yet, Chibipoe?
Finishing the David Bad, because I just started that. I've got a couple of over here. I want to start up Daniel Abraham's Kithamar, and I've got Mark Lawrence's Book That Wouldn't Burn. I don't get through it too. So, and then just picking up, starting on the last King of Ostenard, and maybe some Hobb. I've got a bunch of Hobb to read too. So, and a bunch of Tad Williams. I might try something other and different from than the Ostenard stuff, because you got Other Land and the Shadow March, and then the urban fantasy trilogy he's got. So
let's see. So for my list, the ones that I didn't really spend a whole lot of time, I just sped out a few, just whatever came to my mind. In no particular order, A Congregation of Jackals by Craig S. Zoller. It's a grimdark western. Like, it's not really a fantasy book. It's more of a gritty revenge tale. It kind of poses questions about escaping your past, if you can't escape your past, or if it will always find a way back to you if you can ever just get away from what you've done and start over again. It was pretty intense read. For those of you who have seen Bone Tomahawk, he's the same author who wrote Bone Tomahawk, if you've seen that movie. That's kind of the same vibe. I think this one's even worse in some ways. Well, worse, like more violent and bleak. The next one was A War to End All by Michael R. Fletcher. I think any last book in the series, I wasn't really nervous about the end of the Manifest Delusions. I just figured it'd work out. But Clayton Snyder and Michael R. Fletcher they co-wrote it, and it ended up being a lot funnier than I expected. And it's fun seeing the progression through the series of it, starting off pretty bleak and pretty dark and pretty serious, and then it kind of veers off into more of a poking fun at religion and some other things, but it pokes fun at everyone, so it's kind of, it's like everyone gets a turn. But that was fun. The next one was The Last of the Atlanteans by P.L. Stewart, another great book.
Nice.
There was a scene towards the end of that book. I won't spoil anything if you haven't read it, but there was a very intense scene at the end that was just done just masterfully.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
The next one was The Servitor of Sin by Christopher G. Brenning. It was like a novella, but I was itching to get back into that world, and something about Brenning's writing, it's very fast and action-packed, and it reads like a movie. It has that kind of feeling to it. The next one was I chose one from the Second Apocalypse, and I just figured the Unholy Consult. I think The Judging Eye is probably close to one of my favorites of the year, one of my all-time favorites. What a wild ride, second half of that series. So that's on my list. And of course, Curse of the Mist Wraith by Johnny Wirtz. I mean, what can you say about that? It blew my mind. And again, it's another book that forces you to slow down and to not, to just enjoy it, like to just, take your time with it. And so, because every word is just full. There's like no, every word means something. It doesn't feel like there's fluff, so it's one of the most memorable for me. And I did write down a couple of comic books. Swan Songs, I don't know if anyone's into comics, or it's an anthology series by W. Maxwell Prince, and he rotates artists through, and every issue is a different story. Wonderful series for those of you who aren't reading it, who want a comic book recommendation. Of course, Berserk. What can you say about Berserk? Getting me more into manga, and I was afraid to mention this one because of recency bias, but Somna #1, I believe it's by Becky Cloonan, and I forget the other person's name, but Somna, it's like a historical horror, almost erotic thriller. It's like the Witch and Midsommar mashed together, and the artwork, everything is just stellar. So that one stuck with me. I read it a few days ago when it made the list because it's just so good. So those are that was my
Becky
list.
Becky Cloonan, is that the artist?
Becky Cloonan.
Is she from Saga, or is she from?
I think it's Saga is
Paper Girls, right?
Oh yeah, Baby
I
Paper
forget
Girls.
which one.
Yeah.
Maybe it is Saga. I don't know.
Fiona Staples is Saga, right? Fiona
That's
Staples.
right. Yeah, but I've seen her name before, so
Yeah, she's been around for a
I
while.
thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was in association with Brian K. Vaughan and something, but
Oh, it's Becky Cloonan and Tula Lote.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty well dried. But yeah, but I am looking forward to reading The Road this year, since it's been mentioned here in a few lists today. And I think we're going to be reading Sandman. I'm looking forward to that. Swamp Thing, Alan Moore,
Cool.
Swamp Thing.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Those are just top of my head.
The Fade Out.
Yes, we need to plan a time for that.
Yeah. Good stuff.
It is on my shelf, just waiting. I think it's right there. But yeah, fun, good year. I didn't feel like I read as much this year, but I remember what I read better. So maybe that's not a bad thing.
It's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Paromita, out of your top 10, you said these are the ones you would definitely want to reread, right?
Yes.
But what was your favorite reread of the past year?
Probably Lord of the Rings. Boring answer, but it always works.
That's legit, though.
Yeah. Other than that, Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I think I read it twice. Lord of the Rings, I think I overdid it last year. I think I read it thrice. It could even be 4 times, but definitely at least thrice. So
Wow.
Lord of the Rings is probably the answer. And then The Goldfinch, To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, these are like tied. So if I go by just sheer number of rereads, because I was like, I love this much, then yes. But The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is, if I'm forced to say what is your one favorite book all over, then I would probably say still The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh,
So-
wow, nice,
Yeah. Dickens.
cool.
Great Expectations, but Great Expectations is like it lives rent free in my mind. So, but yeah, I loved rereading that as well.
Nice. Cool.
In fantasy, and reread a lot of Ursula K. Le Guin. I think The Left Hand of Darkness, The Lathe of Heaven, and The Birthday of the World, and other stories. These 3 would be my favorites. What else? I reread a lot of stuff. I reread A Song of Ice and Fire, which I liked a lot, and I think I reread it twice again. I like it that much. King Killer, I reread thrice. I'm just sad about it because I'm rereading it now again. it's delightful. I reread the Osternath saga because actually I thought the final book would come out in November. So I started a reread, and then I was like, let me finish it only because it's so lovely. So those were some fun. But yeah, short answer, one book is The Lord of the Rings.
I did pick up King Killer.
You're not going to like it, I think.
Oh no.
Like I'm cautiously optimistic, but I don't know. Like maybe, but like anything can happen. I think after I love Berserk this much, I think we all keep an open mind and anything is possible. But like I would be so surprised if it like ends up becoming a top series or something. Possible? But it could also like really annoy or bore you. Like it could go in either direction. I'm eager to see which.
Wow. I find it fascinating that you can reread so much, and then when I hardly ever reread anything at all. I was always looking for that next thing, and until I finally, after the movies came out for the Lord of the Rings, I finally reread Tolkien, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad rereading something, you know, and then so after I reread those, I reread the first and second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, and then and that was right before he came out with the last Chronicle, so it was good timing actually. And then and now this year I started, or actually last year I started rereading Malazan. And so that's it in my life. Those, I mean, other than a few comics here and there, but those are like made for major series. Those are the only rereads I've ever done.
I think for me what happened a bit was I tried a lot of new stuff, and some of it I even read to completion, but I was disappointed or angry with myself or something, and so to recalibrate, the only thing that works at times are rereads, and that's one reason, and the other reason is probably what, again, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but what Nabokov said, that like a true reader is not a reader but just a rereader, because you just get more and more. And I don't mean necessarily the physical act of picking up the book and reading it again from front to back, but even if a book has that impact on us, that it lives in our mind, and there are passages which just come to us while we are doing something else, and then we think about it from a different perspective. Even that is a kind of rereading for me personally.
Oh, sure, yeah. I can't say I haven't done that. I've definitely gone back and looked at like things that I've underlined or something like that. But that's true. I mean, and I have reread a lot of Howard stories, Conan Howard stories. I reread a lot of those.
Okay.
Those are short, you know.
Yeah.
So that not.
For me, the author that I've probably reread the most, and she's also my favorite author, is Agatha Christie. And there was a period of about 8 to 9 years in between where I didn't read anything new, as it just fell out of reading. And so that time, all that I read was there are some Bengali things which I won't mention because they are not translated, but in English, the only things that I reread over and over again voraciously is Agatha Christie, Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes complete collection, Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, and Harry Potter. That's it. So for me, like I guess some part of my brain always tells me that if I'm getting bogged down or something, to just go and reread a favorite, and then when I hear something about Lord of the Rings, I guess like there's always some enthusiasm in some corner of the internet where I lurk in for Lord of the Rings. I see a post or I see something, and then I'm like, oh, I want to read this again, and it's quite joyous. I mean, I hesitate to ask this about Malazan because it's quite serious in what it says, but. Does the act of rereading, especially Malazan, did it bring you a sense of joy or peace?
I don't know about peace, but joy, yeah. It no, I'm thoroughly enjoying it a lot because I missed a lot the first time around, and I guess it's like a puzzle, you know, that the first time when it took me a long time to put it together, and this time I'm assembling the pieces quicker, and that's bringing me joy because I'm seeing certain things that I didn't see before, certain connections, and I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. But I'm also enjoying his prose a lot more because I think the first time I read it, I was like, this is a big book, and I want to get through it, and I want to get to the next one because it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, you know, his books are so deep and all that stuff, but it is quite possible to read that series just for the action and get through it, and just have a good time, you know, and maybe a little less likely with that on the last few of them because they're a bit more philosophical, but you can definitely do that. And I think I did a lot of that the first time around. I was just like, oh wow, look at that, you know, there's these cool races and this cool battle and this, you know, and all this stuff going on. But on the second read through, I'm actually enjoying it more than the first time because I'm just connecting a lot more, and I'm understanding a lot more what he was trying to do rather than just reading it like another epic fantasy. And so it's been a bigger pleasure, and it is also the reason I actually discovered BookTube because I actually just started by looking up an interview with Steven Erikson, and AP's channel popped up, you know, so the Critical Dragon, and so you know, of course, that only led me down a bigger rabbit hole into understanding more about what Erikson was trying to achieve with these books, and that just, I don't know, it added to even more to the pleasure of the reread that I'm doing now, and I'm very good at staying away from spoilers on anything, including for the books that I haven't reread yet, which is the last two in the main series. I actually have not watched any discussions on those at all because I still want to get my own impressions on my reread as I get to those books, the Dust of Dreams and the Cripple God. And it's fun too because I'm doing the Esselmont ones too, and I'm finding stuff even in those books that I was like, oh wow, okay, there's puzzle pieces in those ones too that go right along with it. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun with that, and that's different than the rereads I've done before, where I have this level of involvement, really, self-participation.
How about you, Chibipoe? Because I know you have reread Wars of Light and Shadow, and same question for Steve actually, because now you're rereading Second Apocalypse. So yes, for both of you, I mean, how is it on a reread? I guess for Chibipoe, this is nth reread, not the second reread, and I guess for Steve, it's the second reread. I mean, sorry, the second read through of Second. So how has it been? Is it fulfilling? Is it, I don't know, are there parts where you find new things, or are there parts where you're a little bit like, this could have gone? I mean, how in general, how is it?
Well, for the things I reread, for Wars of Light and Shadow, I find new things every time. So I've never been disappointed in a reread, for those. Some of the others I read, I'm not disappointed in them, but I don't reread them, thinking I'm going to find anything in depth, because I just read them because they're fun. And I really like the series, but it's just also a habit. It's like, if I follow a long series, it's like, and there's a few years between books, I'm like, all right, I got to refresh myself. So time to reread everything and catch up to where the stuff is at, which can be daunting, especially in, and Jenny's not even the most egregious example of that, because, Wars of Light and Shadows, in terms of how many books, is, not the longest series that I've been following. Though that other series is broken up into, smaller chunks, so like, here's 2 books, here's 6 books, here's 8 books, so, but all collectively it's like, oh look, 16 books, 17 with the new one, and there's still 3 or 4 more, or possibly 5 more to go. So that one gets kind of daunting, but it's a lot of fun, and it goes fast. So then that's for the Michelle West, series. So and yeah, just anything I pick up usually to reread is probably just because it's, other than like, West or Wirtz, and is just, it's like I've read it before and it's fun to read real quick. So, and I don't ever run into being displeased or being like blah. If that ever happens, I end up, probably ends up getting, kicked off my shelf, because I'm like, okay, I'm no longer interested in this. And that is fairly, a fairly sparing event. So.
For me, I'm not very smart, so the second time reading the second Apocalypse, I'm finding I felt like I followed the story for the most part, but now I'm noticing a lot more of the lore and what's going on in the background, and I'm noticing little breadcrumbs that he added in as that pay off later in the series, even in the last couple of books. So it's pretty neat to see the little things that he planted very, very early that sprouted later, and not major. Well, they're major events later, but they're just a quick mention in the first couple of books. So it's pretty neat to see that, the setup. Even if you would have never know, you'd never know in the first read, but going back and rereading, you notice a few things is pretty neat. But cool. Well, I want to. So thanks to everyone for coming by. It's a fantastic 2024, and yeah, it's fun to hear it. Now I'm regretting my decision to not start a new series in the new year.
Yeah, jeez. Were there any other interesting standouts that maybe didn't make your top 10 or anything like that, but just stuff that surprised you or was just interesting on the side?
Let me take a look.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One was which Jarrod recommended to me in our last forum hangout, The Drowning Girl by Caitlin Kiernan. It was a 5-star. Yeah, it was a 5-star read for me. I just got it because I made that, like, would I reread this? Because it's an incredibly good book, but it's very depressing. It's not depressing as in, it will bog you down, but it is deep, deep, deep dive into someone's psyche, and it's a bit tough. But it was a real surprise because I was like, yeah, okay, I will read this, and then I was like, wow. So that was a wonderful surprise. This was not so much of a surprise. This happened earlier. This was earlier in the year, but I didn't expect to love it as much as I did on a reread, which was Lud in the Mist by Hope Mirrlees. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I think I've talked 2,000 times, and everybody's sick of me mentioning this novel. It's like my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorites. I love that book. And Lud in the Mist was like the precursor, published in 1926, this short standalone. When I read it the first time, I don't think I quite got the magic, but when I reread it this year, I was just mesmerized. So I love that. I think I was pleasantly surprised by Sun Eater. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, and I enjoyed reading the books, and I binged them. I totally binged them. And it's a lot of fun. And
would you read Oh, go ahead. What was that?
No, go ahead, Jarrod.
Would you read another Caitlin Kiernan book?
Yes. I have it on my list. I totally have it on my list. Yeah, I mean, I want to try some of her more out there stuff, but just need to be careful that I'm in the right headspace. That's it. But other than that, absolutely. This was not so much of a surprise because I like Hunchback of Notre Dame, but La Miserables by Victor Hugo. This one also I read early in the year, and it was very nice. Again, it would have made my top 15 or 16, but I had to cut it. I think Crossing was a real surprise. Like, all three of these are surprises because the amount that I complain about Blood Meridian and Child of God, like, I think they are yucky books. I can't stand them. By Cormac McCarthy. It's like, whoa. But from there, when I read The Crossing, I was just so moved. I was speechless. And then wrote, loved, and then recently I read No Country for Old Men, also really, really liked. Not quite in the 5-star status of Road and Crossing, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Those are some of the standouts.
Yeah. Because I had some surprises. They weren't like my top 5 or anything like that, but I was I was very interested with Perdido Street Station.
Oh, yes.
You know, it wasn't one of my favorite books of all time, but I was glad. I was very glad I read it, and I found it very fascinating. And also the Sci-Fi Masterworks read along. You know, none of those books would ever make my top 10, but I'm still having a good time reading them and talking about them, and they're fascinating pieces of science fiction history, really, and so I'm having a good time with that series. You know, so it's and there've been a couple other books during the year that have entertained me, but they didn't blow me away as far as like the best book ever, but there was something unique about them that made them interesting for what they were. Like Sea of Poppies, I read Sea of Poppies, and that was very interesting book.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I was glad I read it because I was just like, wow, that's just different, you know. Anything like that for you, Steve? Or?
I was looking over the list of what I read. Nothing really stands out too much. There's a lot of good, but there wasn't anything that really was. I don't think was even in the. I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed Word Gods by Susanna Imaginario. I was finishing up the Dandelion Dynasty at the end of the year, so those ones were on my list for last year. But the other ones were just kind of fine. Nothing that really stands out, though. That was I think my list is pretty much head and shoulders above. Yeah. I
just remembered because I want to mention this now. Anachrony. So the audiobook that Susanna Imaginario, her channel, The Den of the Weird, she released this 2 hour something minutes audiobook, and I loved it. I really, really loved it. And I always had an impression of the series because I didn't really get American gods. So I was like, I don't know enough mythology, especially Western mythology and the games she's going to be playing with those to get the series. But I loved Anachrony so much, which is like, I think it's book 3.5. So it's like this bridge novelette. I can't call it a novella, but it's like a novelette, and it has such a unique character voice, and so yeah, that was a 5-star read for me. It was lovely.
Yes.
That really surprised me because I was like, I'm not going to get anything in this series. I won't understand. When I say I'm not going to get it, I mean I won't understand anything because I don't know the source mythologies. But it was not a problem for me. I really enjoyed what I listened to.
Nice.
There must have been something I loved. I'm trying to think. I like that there are phases of my reading which were marred by like 1 star, 1 star, 2 stars, 2 stars. So I'm trying to skip over those and remember the fun things that I read. But I think I mentioned most of the ones that that have stayed with me. Others have been rereads. I think I got a lot more into translated literature, and that is something that I want to keep going in 2024. So I guess this clicked for me more on a reread is Borges, his short stories. So that was something that I didn't expect again to click for me. I was like, I'm not smart enough for this. And then I slowly read it with more patience, and it clicked slowly, a little bit. I think that better than the first time. And another book which I really liked, the first time it really disturbed me, but the second time it disturbed me, but I also liked it, is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. And she was incidentally also the poet I was thinking about when I said that there are select poets whose works I do enjoy. So Sylvia Plath's poetry is actually something that spoke to me quite a bit.
Such a tragic end for her, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very, very tough. There's a biography of her, Steve and Jarrod and Chibipoe and everyone listening, which you might like. There have been many biographies, but this one is, it came out in 2020, I believe. It's called Red Comet. It's by Heather Clark, and it's fairly comprehensive. But what makes it unique as compared to other biographies is there's a trigger warning for end of life thoughts. So I'll be speaking for, let's say, the next 2 minutes about a very tragic event in Sylvia Plath's demise. Take care, listeners, maybe just 2 minutes. So Sylvia Plath took her own life, and she was a lifelong patient of chronic depression. At that time, treatments were not what they were now. She was subject to a lot of treatments which did not agree with her, and so on and so forth. But the difference with this biography and the other biographies is other biographies seem to take her suicide as a given and reframe her entire literary contribution in the context of that. And this is something that apparently modern culture does as well. For example, if there is a neurotic character or a psychotic character, often female, they'll be shown holding a copy of The Bell Jar with all the associated implications. But what Heather Clark does is she tries to show the woman behind that. Sylvia Plath was a living, breathing entity. She was extremely talented. She had a lot of creativity. She had a lot of ideas. Yes, depression was a part of her personality, but it was a part of her personality. It was not her personality. She was not depression personified.
Right.
She was a talented poet. She was very, very good in her studies, an excellent student. She was a very good spouse. She tried her best. She's a very loving mother. Along with all this, she tried to keep her poetry going. And yes, this illness bogged her down, as many other people have been bogged down by other illnesses. So, from this perspective, if you want to read about her life, I would highly recommend the biography. And I got recommended this by a friend on Discord who listened to the audiobook. And he also said that, because for non-fiction, it is a bit easier compared to fiction. If you are doing something, let's say like chores or you're driving or something, just to have it going. And this audiobook is very well narrated. So I would highly recommend that.
That's cool.
Adding it to my list. Looks good. Yeah, my list. But yeah, it's fascinating. Brilliant poet, though.
She is, and something we will all find in each of her poems. I think maybe that's where the brilliance comes from. That you're thinking of, Steve. That something very, very humane way of writing.
Mm-hmm. Very vulnerable and
yes.
Yeah. Honest.
Yes. I'm very, very fond of Sylvia Plath. And again, as I said, maybe a part of it is influenced by how much she tried and couldn't in the end. She succumbed, but it was a very, very great artist. I'm always very saddened when the lives of artists are tragically cut short. There's perhaps a selfishness within us that, at least within me, that, what else we could have got. Definitely that aspect comes in a bit. I mourned that with Kentaro Miura as well. Very, very tragically. He died of an aortic dissection, so medical causes, but yeah, same thing.
Well, on that note, but no, I want to thank all of you for coming by to hang out and talk about your favorites of the year and make me regret my decision I just made like a few days ago about not buying a new series. But yeah, so in the meantime, Jarrod, where can people find you?
You can find me on the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and you can find me on the Page Chewing forum anytime, almost.
And Creative Crossroads too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking forward to the next entry. And Paromita, where can people find you?
The best place to find me would be on the Page Chewing forum. I post there quite regularly, and I respond to messages as soon as I see them about Delhi.
Do you get a lot of messages?
Not really, but
okay.
sometimes I do. Sometimes it's like, oh no, again another 2-star read, and I'm like, yes.
Nice. And
but I'm always happy to chat books. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Paromita.
Yeah, I was just saying I'm always happy to chat books, so I can be found on the Page Chewing forum. And
sure.
Anything except very, very gory horror and splatterpunk with like body parts. Other than that, I think I'm very happy to chat. For that, you asked.
I'm still amazed that you made it through Berserk.
I think the artwork won me over.
Still amazed. It's like, well, see, I love the series. I can't say I care much for its fans because they're crazy. Because they're very much, there's a very vocal group of, Griffith did nothing wrong. And I'm like, No. Just a world of no. Yeah. Griffith did a lot wrong. But yeah, they'll just they're crazy about it. They'll like defend him to, to be like, oh, that was the only way that he could honor and I've actually seen someone argue this, that his sacrificing, what happens in the eclipse is the only way he could honor the, everything that they've done for him. And I'm like, it's like, is he well written? Yes. Is he a good person? No. Yeah. So, just people in Griffith, a lot of fans are really crazy about him in not good ways. So, anyway, I can be found on Page Chewing, and I look around on Twitter, and I am on Blue Sky. And if anybody needs Blue Sky codes, I have like a bunch of them, so I will happily give them out. That's all for me.
You're muted, Steve.
Jeez, you figured by now I'd have it down. Anyway, just wanted to thank everyone. I was taking and drinking my coffee. Just want to thank everyone for coming by, hanging out, and listening to us, and talking about our favorites of the year. It's always fun to look back and see what resonated over the course of a year or so, and what stuck with us, and how it sometimes changes our lives with things that we read and things we enjoy. So, or inspires us to do something. So. Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone, and we will talk very soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.